Alright guys, welcome back to the podcast. This week we're going to jump back into our time machine. We're going to go not too much further back into the past as we did last week. Last week we're in December 98. This week we are in January 1998. This is Tales from the 90s.
Wrestling wars and morning yawns. Play kickball in the street, man, those days can't be beat. Tales from the 90s never die.
Yeah, if you guys aren't aware of how this works here, I don't go linear month by month. I'll pick a random year and a random month. And just so happened to be the same year. We're going to go to 1998, this time January. We're going to see how the year started off. Been getting a lot of good feedback on the podcast. Hope you guys are enjoying it. Bonus episodes coming up soon. We're going to have a few clips of going to the flea market. Not anything enough to make an episode, just a few clips of finding some retro stuff we found at the flea market. If you guys like that, let me know. We'll go to more of them in the future. As if you can see, big Megazord here in the background. I don't even know if you can see the top of it. It's way up there. This is a giant 2.5 foot, maybe 3 foot thing. This thing works. Everything opens. Everything moves on it. It's pretty cool. I didn't even know those things existed. But, yeah, speaking of bonus episodes, though, I'm going to do something a little different. It's not, and the fact that it's not that retro. It only goes back about 9 years. Coming out on November 19th is going to be an episode all about my journey through professional wrestling, from starting as a fan to getting involved in camera work and then announcing, and then all the different things I've gotten to do, and just a lot of stories about wrestling. And going to take you through my tag team match I had last year. It was on November 19th. That's why this episode's coming out then. It's been 1 year, so make sure you look for that. And again, November 19th. But that's November 19th, and this is Tales from the 90s. So right now we're going to go into it. We're going to get started. We're going to look at some video games that were coming out. Of course, the current generation of consoles, as I told you last week, Sega Dreamcast had just came out the month before. So the Sega Saturn was out, but of course it was on its last legs. That was a system that never really took off the way Sega wanted it to. It was the first disc game console for Sega. I gotta look back. I think it might have been out before PlayStation 1. If I'm wrong about that, don't kill me.
Okay.
But PlayStation 1 was definitely out during this time. Like I said, Sega Saturn on its last legs, and Nintendo 64 was heating up too. So we used to have the Super Nintendo Sega Genesis wars. Now we've got the Nintendo 64 PlayStation 1 wars. And like I said, Sega Saturn on its last legs, and we'll talk more about the Dreamcast another time. I talked about it a lot last week. It's not out yet. But games that were released during this time, I don't really have much of a memory of any of these games. I never really played them. Probably the most famous one was Resident Evil 2 for PlayStation. I know, another one of those games. How could you not have played that? Never played it, never seen the movies, but everybody seemed to love Resident Evil 2. Robotron 64, obviously, a Nintendo 64 game. No One Can Stop Mr. Domino. It's a puzzle game for PlayStation 1. Never heard of it. Machi for Sega Sega Saturn. Bomberman World for PlayStation. Bust a Groove. It was one of those dance rap games. Speaking of rap, I always remember that game, or that commercial that come on all the time for Parappa the Rapper. It was one of PlayStation 1's first games. That commercial was on all the time. Whenever I'll talk about that more in detail. I've only ever played the demo for that, but anyway, Buster Groove I think was kind of like that with a dance element, and then Panzer Dragoon Saga for Sega Saturn. I almost said Sega Genesis. I don't want to say anything but Sega Saturn. Shows you how important the Sega Saturn was. As I said before, I only had limited experience with that system, but the funny thing about it is I remember the most is I like the CD player and the functions on it. Yeah, not a lot of experience with that. But a lot of things I do have experience with is watching sports. And of course, around this time, January, just like last week's episode, no baseball going on, but the NFL playoffs were underway during this time. Green Bay would defeat San Francisco to win the NFC, and Denver, Colorado. It is Denver, Colorado. Denver Broncos. I can't speak, as you can tell. Denver Broncos beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Good for them. In the AFC, the Bengals were in the cellar, as always. I picked the wrong time to talk about the Bengals if I'm talking about the 90s. It was dreadful. Like, Bengals will win 6 or 7 games and be considered a massive failure this year. 6 or 7 games, we might win 3 years combined back in the 90s. But anyway, Denver would go on to beat Green Bay. As I talked about last week, how Denver went on to their second. Well, this is their first of their 2 back-to-back Super Bowl championships. Of course, John Elway would retire after the second one. But the NBA was going on, and as I've said before, I'm not a huge fan or know much about the NBA or NHL. But the NBA, the leaders at the end of the month were the Miami Heat, Indiana Pacers. Of course, I know them. I'm from Indy. Lived half my life probably in Indiana, so of course I know about them. San Antonio Spurs and the Seattle Supersonics. And the NHL was in the middle of their season. Their leaders were New Jersey Devils, Pittsburgh Penguins, Dallas Stars, and Colorado Avalanche. Again, not huge fans. Like, I like playing the video games, and I've enjoyed going to watch hockey. I grew up in Cincinnati, so there goes my dogs. They must not like hockey. Anyway, I grew up in Cincinnati. I watched the Cincinnati Cyclones and also the Cincinnati Mighty Ducks. They were both like the minor leagues, obviously. They weren't the NHL, but it was a lot of fun. And like, I had fun watching basketball games during high school. It's just not something I really pay close attention to on TV. What are you guys barking at? They must want me to stop talking about hockey since I know nothing about it. Anyway, we'll talk about something I haven't really talked about on here before because there really hadn't been time. NCAA football. Of course, you'd think that Bengals jersey, you'd think that my favorite team would be the UC Bearcats, but nope, it's actually Ohio State Buckeyes. I thank my dad, grandpa, and Uncle Dan for that one. But this was the last year before the BCS, as it was known, the Bowl Championship Series. Of course, now they have, kind of like NFL, they have a playoff system for football. Back then, they had polls that would pick teams. And actually, this year, 2 teams split the national championship. I know it sounds completely ridiculous. Like, how can 2 teams be the best? They should face each other. That's basically what they're doing now. But it was the Michigan Wolverines, and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Yeah, they huck the corn. Apparently that's all they had to do in Nebraska, is shuck or huck corn. I don't know. This podcast is getting off the freaking rails, I'm telling you right now. But anyway, they both finished undefeated. Ohio State lost to Florida State in the Sugar Bowl. I really wasn't watching college football then. I didn't really start to the early 2000s, kind of like with NASCAR, so I wouldn't have known about that either way. I mean, like I said last week, I was in a complete different headspaces when I was as a kid, and as a kid I watched sports, but I didn't really pay attention, know what was on in the standings. I just, hey, a Reds game's on, I like the Reds. I'm tracking every statistic. I'm going, well, we're this far back, and completely different now. But like I said, as a kid, never paid attention to college football. I still don't to the large part. I normally just pay attention to Ohio State and what else is going on near the top. Hoping Ohio State's near the top. But yeah, that's just a little bit of the sports. Again, we try to give you some facts here on the podcast. I don't know why I always refer to it as we. It's just me. Act like there's a team behind this. Obviously, clearly not. If there was, they'd tell me to shut up and edit some of this stuff out. But anyway, I'm Somebody is going to talk about wrestling right now. This is, of course, Royal Rumble time, January, right before WrestleMania 14, when just the huge explosion of the Attitude Era really got kicked off. This was kind of the start of it. The Royal Rumble, like I said, January 18th from San Jose, California. This is, of course, the famous one with Mike Tyson in attendance. Of course, he would go on to be the special enforcer in the Stone Cold Shawn Michaels match, because of course Stone Cold won the Royal Rumble. He had last eliminated The Rock, and then of course went on to defeat Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14 to win his first WWF title. But in the main event of this, actually it wasn't the Royal Rumble. It was Shawn Michaels in a casket match against The Undertaker. That match is famous for two reasons. One, it was the match that finally made Undertaker accept the WrestleMania match against his brother Kane. Kane had been going after him for weeks. Undertaker was like, I don't want to fight my brother. But this one, he put Undertaker in the casket and set it on fire. Undertaker's like, that's enough. But it's also famous for a move where Shawn Michaels was thrown out of the ring and hit his lower back on the edge of the coffin, and that he'd had back problems for a while, but that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, pardon the pun. But he was out for almost 4 years before he came back and went on for another, how long did he? I think he wrestled another 8 years and probably had even better matches than he had back then. And of course, they had a complete attitude change. He found God. He was a different person than what he was then. Because that Shawn Michaels and the other Shawn Michaels, I mean, you watch a million interviews. I'm not telling you anything I know personally. I don't know these people personally. I wish. But, yeah, that was famous for that. And then, just another thing of note for WWF, Owen Hart would defeat Triple H for the Intercontinental title a week later. Try to give all these little facts just in case. A lot of people keep track of title histories and stuff. WCW was doing their pay-per-views with NWO then. It was WCW NWO Sold Out. January 24th from Dayton, Ohio. Never actually been to Dayton. It's not like... It's closer to Cincinnati than Columbus, Ohio is. But I've never actually been to Dayton. This is the Hara Arena. Yeah, the Hara Arena, I think it was. Like I said, never been there, but I would always get one of their radio stations. They always played the classic stuff. Even in the 2000s when everybody was just playing the newer stuff, they would play my good stuff from the 80s. But anyway, we're skipping topics here. Chris Jericho defeated Rey Mysterio to win the Cruiserweight title on this night. And it was actually a busy month for that title because Rey won the title the week before from Juventud Guerrera, who won it the week before that from Ultimo Dragon, who, by the way, WCW couldn't figure out whether he was the Ultimate Dragon or the Ultimo Dragon. They would, like, the graphics and the announcers would switch week to week. Some weeks this is the Ultimo Dragon, some weeks the Ultimate Dragon. Pretty sure it's the Ultimo Dragon. But anyway, both those matches took place on WCW Thunder. It's kind of their secondary show. And this was before SmackDown. Of course, SmackDown's now looked at more as equal to Raw, not a secondary. But anyway, that's now. We're talking about then. Speaking of title matches, the January 12th Nitro, which took place a couple weeks before this, the Outsiders defeated WCW Tag Team Champions, the Steiner Brothers. And, let's see. The main event of this show, though, sold out. There actually wasn't there wasn't a world title match in this because the title was held up because of all that controversy around Starrcade 97, which I promise we'll get into. We'll get to December 97 at some point, and I'll talk all about that debacle. But the title was held up, and would be defended at Super Brawl the next month. Or not defended, but it would be up for grabs between Hogan and Sting. But the main event for Sold Out, Lex Luger beat Macho Man Randy Savage in the main event with a torture rack. And no ECW pay-per-views. They just had some, what they called supercards. It would be their big shows where they'd film a lot of their TVs from. But yeah, no title changes or anything in ECW. But anyway, that's a little bit of the sports and stuff. Kind of want to talk about, because I try to, like I said, I try to give factual stuff, and I also like to give some stories of stuff we did as kids. And this actually suggestion came from my brothers. From Josh. He was like, talk about the games we made up and stuff as a kid. And we had some weird, freaking interesting notes. Weird probably to all you guys. Like, if you know that one of the big game shows from Nickelodeon in the 90s was Legends of the Hidden Temple. Where you'd start out, you'd have like this obstacle course to find out which teams are going to actually even make it into it. And then the teams would go on to the Steps of Knowledge, where you got to earn pendants to go to the final the final round where you actually go through the temple. But anyway, we came up with this idea where we're going to play on the steps. And we're going to come up with the game show quizzes. And it always ended up in a fight because one of us had to be the host. One of us had to play. And I'm tired of being the host. I want to play. Or you're lying. That ain't true. I don't even remember what we used this question. I think we used like stuff like in Goosebump books. Like what happened in this time. Like just stuff like that. Speaking of steps. We would do probably the dumbest thing ever. We had complete wooden steps. We would take one of the mattresses, put it at the bottom, and then go jumping down on it. And I can't tell you how many times we would, like sometimes it would work, but a lot of times we would hit it and bounce off and hit onto the wooden steps. We'd end up with more bruises than Marky Foe even gave us. But yeah, we had a lot of fun doing that stuff. I think I told a little bit before about the deli table. It's where we'd pretend to, like we're at the deli at the store, and we would like, one of us would be grinding up like these like clumps of dirt we call dirt rocks, and the other ones would come in and buy some. We'd have little tickets with numbers, like just all kinds of weird stuff we would do. We would have pogo stick competitions. Of course, Josh and Travis completely killed me in those. Yeah, they were closer to age, so they were a little bit closer than I was with them, like as far as like that dynamic goes. So they were into those the BMX bikes, the trick bikes. I like the mountain bikes because I didn't care about trying to do tricks. And oh god, Josh was obsessed with his pegs. Look at these pegs. Look, he was saying over and over. He had this orange bike that some kid down the freaking street stole and would never admit to, but we seen him with it. But oh, my dad bought me this. Yeah, this orange bike that nobody's ever seen before. It was like a one-of-a-kind looking thing. Like, I'd never seen any other bikes like it since. But like I said, I like the mountain bikes because they were fun to ride. They're easy for me to ride, and I would just ride all over the place when I got the chance to. Yeah, but we'd do all kinds of things. Like, I think it was, I know I'm not in the same year here, but I think it was around 96, 97. Oh my god. We would have these friends come over. I told you about our babysitter Nicole before that left the Coming to America tape. Well, this one, this kid, he was related to her somehow or something like that. But his name was Brandon. They called him B. He was like, I'm Brandon B. His mom was like 30 and his dad was like this 80-year-old like Chinese-looking guy, but he wasn't Chinese. Like, anyway, we would have these Friday nights. They would have these request things on the radio, and they would also have like something they called the dance party, where they would like, they wouldn't just play like just dance versions of some, like Boot Scootin' Boogie had a dance version, but they would play songs and they, you know, a lot of them would be up tempo. Well, we decided to have a dance party down in the basement, and Brandon came over. Again, not the Brandon that's probably watching this. This is in Norwood when we were living on Section Avenue. But anyway, he would dance like this, and I swear this kid was like 10 and had a beard. Like, that's where I remember him having a beard. But we were, he was like, I'm Brandon B, dancing like an idiot. But just the dumbest things you can think of. We made a ring in the basement out of a piece of plywood and Marky Foe suspenders around the poles, and one of us would fall down and be like, okay, that's enough, it hurts too much. It's like, yeah, wrestling on a piece of plywood with nothing over it is really a smart idea. This is the same basement with a toilet out in the open that I don't think was ever flushed or ever washed since the freaking Abraham Lincoln was president. That's another story, but yeah, we just all find all kinds of ways to entertain ourselves. We didn't always get to watch TV or have cable, so we would be very creative on the things we came up with. Josh, Travis, and Clint, I know you were still a baby at this time, but if you guys have any memories of anything talked about, you want me to talk about on here, let me know. I don't know if the majority of the people watching this would care about this stuff, but I find it hilarious. Anyway, speaking of the TV we never got to watch, we would normally only get to watch, like, especially Nickelodeon when we went to Granny's house. And this week, instead of, the last couple weeks I've been doing Saturday morning cartoons. This week I'm going to do a little different and go to the Saturday Nickelodeon lineup. Again, this is January 98. And this is about the only thing I'm reading off a thing. because I can't remember when these were, obviously. Like, I don't remember exact schedules. But, anyway, I haven't looked at this beforehand because I want to kind of just give my first thoughts. But Saturday morning, Nickelodeon, of course, at night was Nick at Night. They would have the classic shows that most kids didn't want to watch. It was mainly for the grown-ups because the kids are supposed to be in bed. But, I mean, there was some stuff, like, now, it's like Andy Griffith. Back then, I didn't hate it, but it wasn't something I went out of my way to watch. But now Andy Griffith's on, like, well, I gotta watch it. But, so anyway, the kids' lineup started at 8 o'clock with Gullah Gullah Island. I've talked about this before. It's the show where they're on the island. They got Binya Binya Pollywog. If anybody remembers that show, that was a show that came out. It was mainly for Nick Jr., but I liked it. I was kind of, I don't know, maybe 12 when it came out, so I was kind of in between the wanting to watch stuff on Nick Jr. and the wanting to watch the older. So I watched kind of it all. Speaking of that type of show, 6:30 was Blue's Clues. I can't say enough about Blue's Clues and Steve and We Just Got a Letter, all that stuff. If you don't know Blue's Clues, it was a lot better when Steve was the host. Let's just say that. The Wubulous World of Dr. Seuss. I recall that, but I don't remember actually ever if I even watched it. I'm guessing it's characters from Dr. Seuss. Maybe I'll look it up and watch it. Some of the stuff I've never watched before, I should watch and maybe do a podcast sometime. That's for the future. But come on at 7:30 in the morning, Inspector Gadget. Oh man, I love this cartoon. Inspector Gadget was always this bumbling idiot that his niece Penny and the dog Brain had to solve the crimes because he was too stupid. Of course, he got all the credit. And then he'd always... I don't know who was dumber, Inspector Gadget or the idiot chief that would bring the exploding note that always self-destructs, and he always knows Inspector Gadget's going to throw it at him. And he does. Why does he need a destructing freaking clue anyway? Like, is it so top secret that... Because always, when the crimes are solved, there's always news choppers around and news vans and a big reporter, like a whole bunch of reporters. Do you really need this top secret thing that's going to explode and burn up the freaking chief? But anyway, 8 o'clock, our old pal Doug. It always seems like any lineup I look up, whether it's Nickelodeon or Saturday morning cartoons, Doug was a staple. Whether they were on Nickelodeon or when they were bought by Disney. At 8:30, it's our old pals, the Muppet Babies. There's that theme song, Muppet Babies. And then Kermit would be like, we wish that you were there. Don't ask me. It's the thing I remember about it the most. Oh, from 9 to 10, Tiny Toon Adventures. Love that cartoon. That's, of course, where Pinky and the Brain started from. Tiny Toon Adventures, classic. Of course, the episode I remember the most was the Halloween one where they parodied the Crypt Keeper. That's my one Crypt Keeper mention, by the way, because there's no Tales from the Crypt going on at this time. So I got my Crypt Keeper mention in. But then it looks like they started double Nicktoon weekends. I think I remember that. Anyway, starting at 10 was Rugrats. Of course, talked about them before. Classic. The Angry Beavers. I never watched that a whole lot. I watched it sometimes when it was on. Again, I was kind of getting away from watching kids stuff. I was getting more into wrestling and more into just listening to music. Hey Arnold, another one that everybody loves that I was like, it was on during my time. It just, I don't know. Something about it, it never struck me like some of the other stuff did. You know, I'm not saying it was a bad cartoon. It's just, it's not my personal preference, but there's a lot of you out there that Hey Arnold was their favorite. And if it is, like, I'm not crapping on it at all. It's just wasn't something that I was that into. Unlike Real Monsters, that was a weird freaking cartoon. Reminded me of like Beetlejuice type thing. Talked about that before. Just one of them crazy weird Nicktoons, and then round out the Nicktoons, Rocko's Modern Life. Another. You look at some of these Nicktoons, it's just the premises of these shows are crazy. And Rocko's Modern Life was just watching it back. There was a lot of adult jokes in that, like all the time. But it wasn't as blatant as Ren and Stimpy, so they got away with more of it. But you watch it now, it's like some of the stuff was even dirtier than Ren and Stimpy. Okay, I promise I didn't even look, but Ren and Stimpy is next. It's like we go from All Real Monsters, then we're building up, and then Rocco's Modern Life, and now we're getting into Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy, what can I say about that? I've talked about them before, too. Just crazy the stuff that they would do on there. Next, because of course we had to, Looney Tunes on Nickelodeon. And this is just called Looney Tunes. It's not freaking Foghorn Leghorn's uncle's sister has a Tweety Bird in her refrigerator. I don't know. They just come up with these weird names for these Looney Tunes. They just call them Looney Tunes. That's all you need. Even in the 90s, kids were still watching Looney Tunes like crazy. But oh, now we're getting into it. 2 o'clock, What Would You Do? Love this game show. Hosted by Mark Summers, of course, the host of Double Dare. This is kind of his, I think I'd seen in interviews, like he loved doing Double Dare, but he kind of wanted something a little different where he could show off more of a hosting personality, where he could tell jokes and stuff. This is, they'd have contestants come in off the street and kind of like a let's make a deal for kids, but they weren't looking for stuff in people's pockets. They were just like pulling kids off of Nickelodeon Studios lot that were there visiting, and they would do all these challenges, and there would be the pie. The famous thing was the pie chair. You'd sit there and have pies thrown at you, and you'd win prizes. That was one I wish they put on Paramount Plus with all the other Nickelodeon stuff they got. What Would You Do? Along with this one, Wild and Crazy Kids. Now that was a show. I talked about that before, about the hosts that had just these like huge teams, and it wasn't always the same people, but they would have teams, and they would do all of these kind of outdoor challenges, and kind of like a Survivor, but I mean, nobody was voted off. Just the challenges were kind of reminding me of that. And then we got Inspector Gadget again, and then 3:30, Hey Dude. Oh, that show was hilarious. I'm going to quit saying I've talked about it before, but I don't want people to think that I'm skipping over some of this stuff. It's just I can't talk the same things about it, but yeah, Hey Dude was hilarious. Like I said before, the rich, not the rich guy, but he's from New York, and he buys a ranch, and all of a sudden he's a rancher, and his son there with the skateboard. He clearly doesn't want to be there, although he ends up liking it eventually. Just it's a show that's more for teenagers, but I mean, it was geared towards kids too. It's just the main characters were all teenagers, and of course Brad was always in love with everybody on there. The typical, like Zach from Saved by the Bell, that kind of character. And then they had just a lot of good stuff on that show. Let's see, The Adventures of Pete and Pete. I've talked a little bit about that. I'd never watched it a lot. It was just so weird to me. Like, I didn't get a lot of the jokes in it. I think it was more for teenagers, like, above me. I didn't get some of their, like, they weren't adult jokes. Some of the stuff went over my head, and I didn't particularly find it entertaining. A lot of people did, though. Clarissa Explains It All. Now, that's one that I found entertaining. That was just... It was probably more geared towards girls, because it's Clarissa, like, her life experience and her dorky brother you wanted to just strangle. But, I love that show. Of course, she went on to Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which we'll actually talk about a little bit later. But she's more famous for that, Melissa Joan Hart. But, yeah, of course, everybody had a crush on her. The Wonder Years, of course, that's a classic show from the 80s. I never watched it, but, of course, Fred Savage was the main character. Brother of Ben Savage, who we'll be talking about in just a little bit with Boy Meets World. That's coming up in our TGIF segment that I talked about last week that I just got an idea off the top of my head. It's kind of how this podcast goes. I'll think of something like, oh, I'm going to talk about this now. It's really just ramblings of an idiot in his living room talking to a camera is really at this point. We need to call it a podcast. Anyway, we got Tiny Toon Adventures again, and then Figure It Out. The game show that came on, it started around this time in the late 90s. It was hosted by Summer Sanders, and you'd have a panel of celebrities, and then you'd have these kids. Normally it was kids. Sometimes it would be adults or families, but they would have something, and they had to go on. It was kind of like to tell the truth, but except you're not guessing who did it. You're guessing what they accomplished, and if you guess they guess it right, then something happens. I can't remember. And if they don't guess it, then the more time goes by, the more prizes the person that's on there wins. And there'd always be a secret word of the day, and if one of the celebrities said it, the slime would come down on their heads. Usually it'd be all of them would get it at once. But that was kind of the late 90s Nickelodeon game shows. One of the last Nickelodeon original game shows to come out that I'd watch. All Real Monsters again, Doug, Angry Beavers. And then we would get into Snick. Sorry, I'm dumbfounded because I can't picture a Snick without Are You Afraid of the Dark. But then I remembered that Are You Afraid of the Dark was off the air by this time. They would show reruns sometimes during the days. That's sad. But Rugrats was on during Snick, and Snick was their big time for Nickelodeon. It was their biggest time slot of the week from 8 to 10. They had Rugrats, all that. All that was like a Mad TV or a Saturday Night Live for kids. Of course, Kenan and Kel, which actually was on next. I didn't even realize that. Although I should have. I memorized these time slots years ago. But Kenan and Kel actually started for their characters from that. And of course, Good Burger came from that. And a lot of these things that are staples of Nickelodeon back then came from the show. Kind of like some of the famous actors and comedians came from Saturday Night Live, which I didn't like Saturday Night Live. But thanks to them, we got the Tommy Boy and Black Sheep, Chris Farley movies, and David Spade. Those movies are hilarious. But anyway, that's kind of like what all that was. And then Kenan and Kel were characters from that. Kenan was, as they said in the theme song for it, Kenan was always scheming. But Kel was an idiot, him and his orange soda. And I put the screw in the tuna! Yes, I just did that. That was, I think it was from the first episode, but that was like the most famous. Kel was such an idiot. Apparently not dumber than me. He's making millions of dollars while I'm sitting here quoting Nickelodeon from the 90s into a camera. Wondering what's going on with my life. Anyway, back to this. The last show of Snick, The Journey of Alan Strange. Heard of it, but never watched it. It must have been... Power Ranger must not like it. He put his fist down or something. Something going on in the background here. But anyway, that's kind of... We got off the rails there, sorry. That's kind of the Nickelodeon lineup for January of 98. You know, not exact like episodes. It just gives general lineup. By the way, the internet is a great tool for looking this stuff up. I wouldn't remember a lot of this stuff off the top of my head. Like the memories of it, I'm remembering off the top of my head, but like the orders of the like. As much as I love talking about the past, I would not want to live without the internet again because just, I mean, obviously I couldn't do this, so that's kind of a little sidebar there. It's just, I love visiting the past, but I also know that the technology of now, while yeah, it does kind of keep us apart physically, like kids aren't outside as much. They're normally inside playing on their phones or stuff, but I mean, if they're still communicating, it's just a different way. You know, it may not be something we like because we're like meeting outside and, you know, all our friends meet up and we'll play this and we'll stay out until dark. You know, it's a different time. You know, there's no sense saying, oh, we had a better childhood. Of course we had a better childhood. These kids will say they had a better childhood than the kids that'll come 20 years from now. That's the way it's always been. It's just, sorry, this has been your final Jerry Springer moment. Take care of yourselves and each other. Anyway, I'm not on crack, I promise. Crackhead Dave ain't coming back. Boy, I'm really going off the freaking rails now. I'm running on like 2 hours of sleep too. You'd think I'd have no energy. I better keep going or this podcast is going to be uneditable because it's going to be too long. And I've got to do a bonus episode after this. But anyway, we will talk about the news. Kind of like with the news from last week the end of the year where Clinton gets impeached. This is kind of where this really gets going. The news about the affair with him and Monica Lewinsky came out. Lewinsky denied the affair. And then in between that, Paula Jones sued Bill Clinton for sexual harassment. But then towards the end of the month, Clinton gave his special, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Which, of course, we ended up finding out was a lie. What a shock. But now it's time for our favorite segment of the day because it's called What Movies Did I Not See? That's right, every time I do these, I expect to see a bunch of movies come out this month that I've seen, and it's always movies I haven't seen. Good Will Hunting, I've heard a lot about it, never watched it. Same with Wag the Dog. Hard Rain, I don't know what that is. Or Star Kid, Deep Rising, Spice World. Of course, I never watched that. My wife's a huge fan of the Spice Girls, but she's never even seen the Spice World movie. She said, I don't know what... That seems like a movie that if you weren't a fan of them, that you would not be able to get into at all. The one movie that came out that I know the most is Half Baked. Not my normal type of movie, but I've watched it definitely a few times with my brothers. The freaking idiot in there, which I swore as a kid was Adam Sandler. I don't think it is. But in my mind, I'm picturing it was Adam Sandler. Like I said, I don't think it is. The idiot that feeds the freaking stuff and kills the police horse and it was a funny movie. Like I said, I'd have to watch it again to get more memories of it. But it was one of those ones that we had the tape for some reason, so of course we watched it all the time. But speaking of tapes, of course I can't do a 90s podcast without mentioning Blockbuster. I mean, come on. Supposedly there's only one working Blockbuster left, and let's hope they stay. I don't know how they're still in business or what they're renting out. Maybe just classic movies. But, yeah, of course, Blockbuster was the place to be. We went to Blockbuster a little bit, but the one we went to the most, because it opened and it had cheaper prices, was Hollywood Video. I don't know, I haven't looked into them to see what they came from or what they became, or if they were... I don't think they were just a local one. But I remember the commercials, because it was a guy in a Barney voice for Hollywood Videos going, I love H, I love V, I love HV's guarantees. Like, I've tried to find that commercial on YouTube, I can't. I don't know if it was a local commercial or what, but I've got to have that as a ringtone. That is like seared into my brain. But yeah, we mostly get our movies from there. I remember like renting Leprechaun 2 was the first time I seen that. And we would watch that about as many times within a week, because you had about a week then. I would watch it as many times a week as we possibly could watch it before I had to go back. But so many memories about that. Of course, we never got to rent any video games, but I know a lot of you have probably had that experience where you know, it's Friday night, you're going to rent a movie, you're going to rent a video game, have your friends over. Didn't quite have those experiences, but a lot of people have from what I've seen, and just, that's a lot of fun memories that people have had. And like I said, I didn't have a lot of memories at the video stores, because, you know, we couldn't afford a lot of the movies. Most of what we watched was stuff that was just lying around the house. Except when Travis and Joshua put on Hot 100. God, we're going to tell a story. Marky Foe had a porno tape. A bunch of them, apparently. And there's one called Hot 100. And my brothers would take this, and they would sneak while we were there by ourselves, because at this point we didn't have a babysitter, because apparently 10's old enough to watch them. I was probably 10, 11, 12, I don't know. But back in those days, it didn't matter. We didn't die, except that one time where freaking I pushed Josh and his hand went through the glass, and I tried to get him to lie to say that someone threw a shoe from the outside, not knowing that the glass was outside, and if the shoe was thrown in, it would land inside. And that shoe had been in our garage, so it wasn't just... And why would somebody... It was a Nike. Why would somebody throw a Nike? I'm getting off Anyway, they would get this tape, this porno tape from Marky Foe, called Hot 100. They would run down the stairs. I don't know what I was doing at the time. Could be doing anything. Probably doing dishes mostly. It's where I spent my life, in that freaking kitchen doing dishes. But they would put this tape on, and I would hear them going at it in the background, and I'd run out and get it. You can't put this on! Take it and put it back. Thought it was hidden. A little bit of time goes by. Here it comes again, and they turn it up. And there'd be people walking down the street hearing this and looking in the window, and to see me standing there with it, they was like, oh, look at that pervert in there. It's like, Hot 100. Don't look it up. Probably don't exist anymore. But anyway, we're going to talk now about TGIF. It was a Friday night lineup on ABC. Different things. Of course, some of the most famous things on there: Boy Meets World, Family Matters, Step by Step. But this was '98, and Sabrina the Teenage Witch had come out, and it was doing huge ratings. So it was actually on twice during this time of the year, and they actually had a new show based around kind of the supernatural theme, like Sabrina the Teenage Witch was. It's called Teen Angel. It was created to be like that type of show, but it was only a season, because you can't just take a show and make something like it and Sabrina the Teenage Witch was, it had the right writers, it had the right actors. It wasn't just let's throw this together because it looks like this and people will buy it. It's not the way it works. It never has been, never will be. It'll never be successful. Anyway, Boy Meets World, which Boy Meets World is something that I discovered for the first time. It was one of my many after-school routines. I'd get home, eat some cereal, and it would be on the syndicated, I think it was Fox Family at the time. It was before ABC Family. I think it's Freeform now or something, but it was Fox Family at the time. It would be on for an hour, 2 episodes of it. And I would because that's the only time I thought it was on. I didn't know it had new episodes. It's on now. But grew to love that show from when they started off in elementary school to next year, where Topanga went from the weird girl to like everybody's crush. Like, you're lying if you watch that show in the 90s and didn't have a crush at least on somebody on that show, no matter who it was. But for me, it was definitely Topanga. But of course, her and Corey were the perfect couple. But it was during this time of the year. Well, actually, it was February. I can't say during January. But the first episode in February was that one that really, really scared a lot of us viewers. It was when Corey, they went to that trip for school where they went to the ski mountains, and Corey broken his leg, I think, and stayed up all night talking to Lauren, and they kissed, and that would lead to the breakup of Corey and Topanga. That was, they were talking about wrestling in school, because it was that hot of a thing, but they were also talking about, like, what's going on with, you think Corey and Topanga are going to get back together? Like, it was a serious deal. I hated her for a while. And then I've been watching her on ER recently and didn't realize it was her, and then one day I was like, she looks so familiar, I'm going to look her up. That's Lauren! Anyway, that was about the time this was going on. So it was our last year in high school. Eric had already started in college. That's when they had him move in with Sean, and then they would have introduced Jack, Sean's half-brother, to the show. They'd all move into an apartment together to go to college, and of course they'd get a roommate the next year, and I can't say enough about that show. Whether it's like I said, the elementary school years, or when they're starting middle school and going to Chubby's, and just the ups and downs of Sean, and of course everybody lost it when Sean's dad died of a heart attack. That was, and of course we all were. All the moments, like the end of the season that was going on at this time, was when they were graduating high school, and Topanga proposes to Corey, and they don't get married like the next season. It goes on a little bit, but they get married, and I almost wish they would have left it there and not done Girl Meets World, because that show was just so over the top cheesy, trying to be what Boy Meets World was, but couldn't be. I wish they would have just ended it. Anyway, I was going to make that a depressing note. We're talking about music now. Surprisingly, normally when I do this feature, I start with the Billboard Hot 100, which is like the pop charts and stuff. Normally it's one song that's been there forever, and it's last week was R. Kelly, and the week before was P. Diddy. What do we got? Michael Jackson this time? Actually, his sister is part of it, but it's actually 3 different songs that spent time at number 1. The first 2 weeks was Elton John's Candle in the Wind, 1997. This was, of course, the tribute song to Princess Diana, who died August the year before in that car crash, being chased by the freaking paparazzi. And you'd think after then the paparazzi and all that crap would be done, that people would have more respect, but no, it's only gotten worse. But anyway, Yeah, that was originally a song he wrote about Marilyn Monroe, but he changed some words in it to make a tribute to Princess Diana. I like that song. And the second song on here that spent 2 weeks at number 1 was Savage Garden's Truly Madly Deeply, which I was surprised to learn was their third single, because I thought it was their first, but it was definitely their biggest single ever. They didn't last too long. They had that, and they came out with another album with I Knew I Loved You, which was another one of their big songs. I thought they would go farther. Like, I remember my mom singing this song, and she didn't normally listen to pop. She came home singing it one day from work, I remember. I was like, how do you know a song that's on the radio the kids at school listen to? Because I wasn't even listening to it, but that's a great song. And then, like I was talking about Michael Jackson, apparently his sister was number 1 with at the final week of this month with Together Again. Never heard the song, but yeah, all the other weeks we've been doing these, it's always been one song has been number 1 for like 20 weeks. It's great to see some differences there. That's the difference I noticed between the pop and the country charts. The pop songs, like, just like the word says, pop, popular, people would like obsess over something for weeks and weeks and weeks. In country, there was a little more room because there was just all these great songs and they were always fighting for position, and just it shows a lot of differences between the two genres. Genre. I can't say that word. I hate that word. Try to never say that word on here again. But anyway, the country charts, the first week, the number 1 was Garth Brooks and Steve Warner's Long Neck Bottle. Of course, off of Garth Brooks' Sevens album. Love that song. Here's that Easter egg that only my brother will get. The end of the song, the double live version, Garth Brooks' first live CD. Well, we had tape then. But you get to the end of the song, he would scream out, "Steve Warner!" Like top of his high-pitched voice, and me and Josh would lose it every time. Like I say, Easter egg for Josh. But second week of the month was Martina McBride, A Broken Wing. That's a good song. I mean, talk about people that can sing. Martina McBride. As my dad called her, his girlfriend. But then the last 3 weeks of the month were taken over by Tim McGraw's Just to See You Smile. Of course, that's off of probably at least my favorite of Tim McGraw's albums, Everywhere. Of course, Tim McGraw's now trying to pretend he's one of these 20-year-old new singers. He's like 50-year-old in these freaking skinny jeans with his freaking liver spots showing, or I don't know. I haven't liked him the last 10, 15 years because he's not what he used to be. And I don't mean like his talent's gone down. I mean he's trying to fit in with this new music, and it's not working. For one, newer people don't like him because he's old. And the people that did like him, it's like you turned your back on your music, like Keith Urban's been doing. It's like I get they got to do this to fit in, to sell, but I mean, it don't mean I have to like it. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox on that one. I'm sure I'll be on that one again. But the biggest album, of course, released this month, which I talked about last week, ended up being album of the year, was Dixie Chicks' Wide Open Spaces. A lot of classic songs from that one, and of course we all know what happened with all the political. I'm going to get into all that. It's just, it's a shame that all that stuff happened. You know, I'm not saying I'm for one side or the other. It's just, it's a shame all that stuff happened, because they could have been like number 1 at the top for years, and all that stuff happened, and then they went to pop, and then they quit for a while, and it's just, I don't know. It's a tale of what could have been. But anyway, I don't know if this episode flew by or dragged by. I was kind of off on different topics. So I'm surprised to see we're at the end of it. But anyway, I hope you guys liked it. If I'm going all crazy, it's because I don't know. Anyway, I hope you liked this episode. I don't know what we're doing here anymore. I have a lot of fun doing these, as if you couldn't tell. It's getting a lot easier to talk to the camera. Hope I'm looking up enough and not just looking down. Again, I got notes, but I don't have a script or anything like that. Trust me, if I had a script, we would be flying through this. But again, I want everybody's feedback. Let me know how you liked the episode. If you didn't like it, if you want more personal stuff, if you want more factual stuff, any other categories I haven't talked about. I know I haven't talked about toys the last couple weeks, just because I just did that bonus episode. By the way, if you haven't checked that out, make sure you check it out. Whether you're watching here on YouTube, Facebook, or you're listening to us on Spotify, I thank you for however you get this podcast. And if you want it more places, if there's other places you listen to podcasts, that'd be easier. I'll see if I can get it there too. But yeah, just be on the lookout for those clips from the flea market and the bonus episode May 19th. What is this? Kane coming back? If you don't remember that one, that's when freaking Kane was tormented by that date. Anyway, November 19th, be on the lookout for my wrestling episode, which I'm going to record after this while I've still got the energy, if I still have voice left after that. But like I said, be on the lookout for those, and who knows when I'll just come up with an idea for something. I'm just putting stuff out like crazy. As long as you guys are still watching. If you don't want to see anymore, let me know, and I'll find some other hobby. But we're really going in the time machine. I'm going farther back than I've gone at all on this podcast. We're going back to June 1990. I was 6 years old then. I'll probably be talking about some of the early memories with my dad, because obviously this is a 90s podcast, so I won't be talking much about the 80s, so I'll do some of that on there. I don't stick to rules, by the way. You can tell I was just talking about freaking something that happened like 2015. Now I'm talking about 80s, but I try to stick to the rules, but we get off on tangents here a lot. But yeah, I'll give them some of my memories about my dad, and yeah, I was 6 years old, so I don't have a lot of like personal memories of that time, like I do the late 90s. But we'll go through our normal stuff. We'll go through all the stuff that came out, and depending on, I might even talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out of their shells tour. Or I might save that for another one. I don't know yet. I'll have to look at everything going on. But anyway, that's next week. We should be on there. This one should be on there too. Wednesday, 9 a.m. Next week, Wednesday, 9 a.m., June 1990. And then, of course, look for the 19th, which I think is the day before that, is our wrestling episode. If you want to hear, if you're interested in all in anything I've done in wrestling, it ain't been a lot, but just given my experience. If you're interested in all in that one, we're having a lot of video clips from it too. So if you're listening on Spotify, it might be hard to follow along, because I'm going to be playing video clips and then commenting afterwards. So you might want to catch the video of that, but I mean, if not, I'll try to narrate it for you if you'd rather just listen to the podcast. Anyway, enough rambling. We will see you next time. Thanks for checking out the podcast, and see you down the road.